Welcome to the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm Tami Stacklehouse, fibromyalgia coach, author, and founder of the International Fibromyalgia Coaching Institute. The goal of this podcast is to empower you with access to the dream team of experts and coaches I've discovered are key to living the fibro life you love. From the comfort of your own home, and maybe even your pajamas, I'll help you take back control of your life and health. To help out with fibro fog, I always include full show notes and additional resources at fibromyalgiapodcast.com. Welcome to the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm your coach, Tami Stacklehouse, and this is episode 112. In today's episode, we welcome back Certified Fibromyalgia Coach Gisèle McDiarmid. In episode 109, I interviewed Gisèle about her diagnosis with MCS, multiple chemical sensitivities. Since that was only part of her story, Gisèle asked if she could come back to share her experience in our Fibromyalgia Advisor and Fibromyalgia Coach training programs. She also wanted to share how those classes took her health to the next level. In this episode, Gisèle and I discuss what she learned that was most helpful, the skills she's still using today, 3 years after her training, how her certified fibromyalgia coach, Julie, helped her in ways her health and wellness coach couldn't, and some of the results she's been able to get for her own clients as a certified fibromyalgia coach. Of course, as always, the information Gisèle and I discuss in this podcast is not meant to be considered medical advice, and it's not intended to replace consulting with a qualified physician or other healthcare provider. As always, we do hope that this gives you new ideas you can discuss with your doctors. Now, let me introduce you to Gisèle. Gisèle McDiarmid is a certified fibromyalgia coach and registered health coach with a BA in psychology. She has been living with fibromyalgia, ME/CFS, and multiple chemical sensitivities for over 25 years. Before becoming a coach, Gisèle worked as a neurology nurse in Canada and the US. Gisèle has experienced the overwhelm and isolation of living with invisible illnesses, the search for answers, and for health professionals to lead her recovery. Wanting to improve her self-care at home between appointments led her to the IFCI Advisor and Coaching programs. Today, Gisèle inspires and empowers others to take control of their health, expertly guiding them on their journey toward living the lives they have been dreaming of. To hear more about Gisèle's journey with multiple chemical sensitivities and how that was the first step in her healing, check out episode 109. We'll have a link to that episode in today's show notes. Go to fibromyalgiapodcast.com/112 for today's show notes. Now, here's my interview with Gisèle. Hi, Gisèle. Thank you so much for being back on the podcast.
Hi, Tami. It's a pleasure to be here again.
Awesome.
Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, for sure. As I mentioned in the introduction, of course, we told your story in episode 109. And after we recorded your story, you asked to come back and talk a little bit more about your experience here at IFCI, International Fibromyalgia Coaching Institute, going through our advisor program and our coach program. So I'm excited to have you back and explore the second part of your story, so to speak.
Well, thanks so much. It's nice to be here.
And so the first place I think I want to start for people is the fact that when a lot of people come and join our Certified Fibromyalgia Advisor class, they're doing that so that they can feel better. But after episode 109, for those of you who maybe haven't heard it, go check it out. You had actually already recovered quite a bit. You were feeling a lot better than most people who come my way. So tell us a little bit, just briefly, for people who maybe haven't heard episode 109, where you were at the point that you came to me.
Okay, so just in a nutshell, I guess, episode 109 really speaks to the fact that I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia and multiple chemical sensitivities and chronic fatigue syndrome. And those were big announcements. And it's a process, right, to find the kind of practitioners that will help you. So I had been through Western medicine system for 20 years, and that really didn't help. I didn't have the diagnoses and I wasn't receiving the treatments. And so I ended up disabled after 20 years. But that opened the door to being diagnosed, because at that point I decided I have to take this in my own hands.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to look further. I have to look outside of the Western medicine model. So I did, and found specialists who knew about these invisible illnesses and who were able to assess my situation and properly diagnose me. So in that process, I was able to find the kind of help that I needed to rebuild my health again, because 20 years with these illnesses takes its toll, right?
Yes, it does.
So without any kind of help, and I was doing everything wrong in those 20 years. I was pushing and pushing when I shouldn't have. So I found someone who was able to help me and was receiving, natural treatments basically for a couple of years. But of course, having a nursing background and understanding how important it is as individuals to also do the right things for ourselves at home, to know what to do between all of the appointments, because the doctors and naturopathic and whatever therapists can do so much, and it's wonderful, but we also have a role to play, right?
Right. I think I always use the analogy of, going to the dentist, right? You can go to the dentist and they can clean your teeth, but you still have to brush your teeth every day.
That's right. Exactly. Right.
Or if you're diabetic, you do the things, but it's really changing how you eat and things like that that really makes the difference. So, yeah.
Those are such wonderful analogies. So that's exactly right. And so I was there at that point where I felt I had enough energy, if you will, to finally look for what I could do for myself at home, how I could manage, because I knew I wouldn't always be receiving these types of intensive treatments. I wanted to make sure that I would know what to do at home to maintain my health and well-being.
Right. That's really one of the tricks, right? Because when we're under the care of a good doctor, like that's a fantastic thing. That's something that everybody needs. But we also can't be solely dependent upon that, because then we're at the mercy of doctor schedules, insurance companies, all of these different things. And so when we can learn how to self-manage a bit, that's where we get our power back.
Exactly. You're so right. And I mean, at some point in that process, I had worked with a coach, and she had taught me that I really needed to take better care of myself. It was a mindset for me, learning that it's okay to take care of yourself. And what does that look like, So I had learned that as well. And now I was at this point where, okay, where can I find someone who understands, fibromyalgia, and who can give me the tools that I'll be able to use on my own going forward.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, Google is always handy. Thank goodness for Google, I have to say. They don't pay me for saying this. But honestly, it's good that we have access to so much information. So thanks to search, I came across IFCI, and I thought, gee, this looks very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And, we had a talk and we had a nice conversation, and it seemed like it was the right program for me, that it would do what I was hoping, to learn to do. So I signed up for the advisor program.
Awesome. And, that is one of the big things that I really try to empower people with through the program is to give you all of that knowledge so that you can manage yourself better, but also giving you the information to be able to talk to your doctors if you haven't, aren't at a place that you were at, right? Having good providers, at least teaching you about the tests and the medications and, all of those things.
Absolutely. And I mean, once I started the advisor program, I realized that there was so much more than I had realized. So it was really quite complete and it really felt empowering. First of all, I felt like I was understanding fibromyalgia properly for the first time and getting sort of the ins and outs of what is this condition and, why do we have these symptoms? Where do they come from? And what do we do when, XYZ happens? And
Right.
these were practical tools, that we can put into practice at home or anywhere. And they work. It really works.
And I think that's saying something, coming from a nurse, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm always a little bit nervous when someone like you signs up because I have that thought of, oh my goodness, that you're already coming in with so much knowledge and so much training. Am I going to have anything new to teach her?
Well, you did, because I mean, really, like I said in my previous podcast in episode 109, sadly, we don't learn about fibromyalgia or MCS or chronic fatigue when we're in nursing school. Just like doctors, sadly, don't learn about these conditions in med school. So I really didn't have prior knowledge. I had a lot of knowledge about a lot of other things, but not so much about, fibromyalgia. So I really appreciated what I learned in the advisor program. And it was well done. And it all made sense.
Oh, thank
so
you.
You passed the test.
Oh, goodness. And one of the pieces of the program, too, that I would love to talk about, because you had mentioned a minute ago that you worked with a coach, but that was not a fibromyalgia coach, right?
No. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. As part of the program, you were matched up with your coach.
Mm-hmm.
How was that working with an actual fibromyalgia coach? Certified versus a coach who, may be certified, but doesn't know fibromyalgia.
Right. So it was a step up, I have to say. And so nothing against all the health coaches out there because we need them.
Yes.
But a fibromyalgia coach I found knew what I was going through, really understood, what my experience was, because she also had fibromyalgia. And she had also learned, had been certified as an advisor. So she knew all the ins and outs. And so she was able to really give me the support, the actual practical support that I needed to put into good use and good practice what, I was learning in the advisor program. So it was taking it from the theory, if you will, to the practice. Mm-hmm. And that's what I found the fibromyalgia coach really helped me with. And just being able to talk to someone who has been there, who is still there, but is managing well, and is so inspiring. And it's so liberating to be able to know that you can say things that otherwise you maybe wouldn't say, but you can say them here because they know.
Yeah. Yeah. Remind me again who your coach was.
It was Julie Schiffman.
Awesome. Yeah. Shout out to Julie.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
So what do you think was the most helpful part of that process for you? Just in where you were at that particular moment, what do you think was the most helpful?
So for me, it was managing my energy, learning how important it is to pace ourselves. And, that was such an area that I had denied myself of when I was going through, those 20 years without guidance and help. I didn't pace myself. I really was doing everything wrong, really. And so, I was just pushing, right?
Right.
And so the advisor program taught me that, when you have fibromyalgia, you really have to work with this condition and you have to know how. So pacing is so important. Realizing that to be expected, that if we push too far, we're going to take longer than another person to recover.
Mm-hmm.
So there are ways of setting up our schedule so that we don't push ourselves to that point where it takes us 2-3 days or longer to recover. And so on top of pacing, there are so many other wonderful tools that you share in the advisor program to help us manage our schedule, our lives, the demands in our lives, so that everything is sort of balanced out and that we don't sort of empty the tank, basically, so that we always have something left over.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I bet that as a nurse, you were trained exactly the opposite, right? To
Yes.
give even when you don't have anything left,
That's
right? Because
right.
that's what's required.
Well, exactly. And so that was how, I became an RN. I was only 20 years old. I went into nursing school at 17. I was still basically a teenager. And so, it was a way of life. To me, this was life. This was how everybody did it. I didn't realize this was just to do my job.
Mm-hmm.
I applied those principles to my life as well. And so I never gave myself a chance to rest properly and, pacing. What was pacing? That was not a concept on my radar. No.
The pace is 100% all the time.
Exactly, right?
Oh, that's too funny. Too funny.
Yeah.
And, another thing we should talk about too is while you were in the advisor class, the world shut down.
Oh my goodness. Yes, that was interesting.
That was interesting. The good thing is, of course, this is an all virtual program. So we just kept on having class.
Exactly.
But it did take a little bit longer because, of course, we're all dealing with ramifications and trying to understand what the heck is going on and the stress of that. What was that like, having that happen in the middle of class?
We all had to go through an adjustment period, of course. And so I wasn't spared, but having this group, the IFCI group, was such a wonderful experience to have at that time because it became a group of people that I could connect with on a regular basis. And that was grounding for me. When everything seemed to be so uncertain in the rest of the world, this felt very grounding.
I love that. I was just thinking as you were talking there that, so many people got so isolated during that time. And I never felt that way because my life was going on as normal.
Of course.
I was still holding classes a few times a week and things like that.
Yeah.
And it definitely helped, like you said, be grounding, a sense, a little bit of normalcy in the middle of all this.
Yes.
Turmoil and confusion.
Exactly. That's so right. And yeah, for you, I guess it was sort of business as usual in a way. But for me, it was, this group of people that, were my people, basically, that I knew I would be connecting with, on a regular basis. And that was a big part of my socializing at that moment, right? So it really was actually perfect timing. If I was going to do it, in that sense, it really gave me sort of a structure to my day and to my week. And that had a grounding effect. I knew I had to listen to, the lessons, and I had to do the assignments. And then there were the group time together with you. And so that was just perfect. It gave me a lot to look forward to. And I was able to focus on something other than what, all the chaos that was going on.
Right, exactly. Because that was one of the dangers, right? The doom scrolling and it just getting sucked into all the bad news at that time. That was tough. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember a few weeks, it was almost a little bit like a support group because there were lots of times that we would all kind of just process and debrief and come to terms with things with each other,
Exactly. Yeah, it really was, as you said, almost like a support group for, that time. Yeah.
That's
awesome.
So
it was really wonderful.
Very cool. Very cool. And you mentioned before we started recording that, by the end of the advisor program, you actually had found some ways to feel better, which I think is really impressive with A, how far you'd come so far, and B, during a pandemic. Because a lot of people, just that global stress and chaos really made a lot of people feel worse instead of better.
Absolutely.
So I think that was particularly impressive there. So tell us a little bit about that. By the end of the class, how were you feeling and how was that different?
So by the end of the class, you're right. I felt, first of all, the first thing I could say is I felt empowered.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I knew now how to take care of myself. And, I was better able to manage my energy, which was sort of the big thing for me. Having chronic fatigue on top of fibro, energy is really a big sort of area of concern. And so being able to apply the tools in the advisor program, yes, it's for fibromyalgia, but there's so much overlap in, a lot of other conditions that we see alongside fibromyalgia. There's so much overlap in the symptoms that if you're going to apply the tools to improve your energy, in relation to your fibromyalgia, it's bound to help you with your energy in relation to any other condition that is zapping your energy, so.
Right. When we learned how to get better sleep, right? That helps everything. When we learn how to manage pain, yes, some of it is specifically fibro pain, but sometimes pain is pain.
That's right. Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. So in that sense, the program really, to me, spoke to how do we manage these symptoms? And so just being able to understand how I could just make some really wonderful changes in how I manage my time, how I manage, my responsibilities and my schedule, and know how to basically maneuver through all of the little details that in the end makes such a big difference. I felt more energetic at the end of the program. And the fact that it was during a pandemic really is a good point that you pointed out, because it really didn't depend on anything external. These tools are tools we apply ourselves. We don't need to have any special equipment or anything like that, really. We can really apply these things at home on our own.
Mm-hmm. That is such a good point because, I had so many clients right at the beginning there that the therapies that they used to manage their symptoms weren't available. Right. So the people who would go to warm water pools, for example, the pools were closed for a long time because who wants to swim in a mask? right? Like that doesn't.
No, that doesn't work too well.
No, but even, massage, acupuncture. I mean, there were just so many things that were closed or people not wanting to go be around other people, because a lot of us were in that high risk group.
Yes, that's right.
Because of our other illnesses and conditions. So, yeah, it was a hard time to go out and, have your fibro management be something outside of your house and to be able to manage that yourself.
Exactly.
Is a much better deal.
Well, it is. It really is. So this program is pandemic proof, really. It doesn't matter now, anything else that may happen. At the end of the day, if we can't depend on, as you said, this therapist, massage therapist, or whatever else that we normally would go and do, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we learn tools in the advisor program that we ourselves apply to our own lives. And we learn to assess our symptoms and the severity of our symptoms. And then we're like, okay, so this is what's happening. This is what I can do.
Mm-hmm.
And it works.
That's when it gets magical, right?
Exactly.
Because then any moment, wherever you're at, it's one of the things that I always say on this podcast is the difference between me and you listening is that I know what my body is telling me, and I know how to get back to my baseline normal.
That's right.
And having that knowledge and that it's power. To be able to, in any moment, wherever you are, it doesn't matter if you're at home, if you're out, if you're traveling, if there's a pandemic going on, right? Then you can still feel the way you want to feel. It's not easy always getting there, right? Like it's a process to learn yourself and to learn how you respond to different things. But that's part of what the homework is about in the training program. It was all about analyzing, your own situation in light of what you just learned.
Yes. And that was part also of working with a certified fibromyalgia coach, because the coach can also help you, learn how to fine tune your assessment of what's going on with you and learn how to best apply, the tools that you're learning. So putting it into practice, having that support was very important as well.
Right.
So when I finished the program, I felt very well able to manage a long list of symptoms. And it's been so practical. I mean, ever since, and one of the things also, a side benefit, is when we learn how to take care of ourselves and how important it is to be in tune with our bodies and to respond positively, when we learn how to respond positively to our body's needs, it helps us also to set healthy boundaries because we have an understanding of what we need to stay healthy.
Yes. And it's hard to set boundaries when you don't know what you need. Like,
exactly.
What does the boundary even need to be?
Well, exactly. So it's like another side benefit. It's like, it's so much easier to set boundaries and to say, this is why I'm doing this, and you can explain it like I've done, with my family. And the response I received was that they were very proud of me,
Right.
They were, like, it was inspiring. I have 3 daughters. I have a son, young adults. But, they grew up seeing a mother who was pushing herself ragged all the time, didn't have the boundaries. And now they see another version. They see someone who I think I'm a better role model for them, actually,
Yes, I love that. It's one of the things that I talk about in class is that self-care isn't just important for us. It's also important for the people around us, because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't help anybody else. And
Exactly.
what kind of example are you setting?
Yeah, exactly.
When we take care of ourselves, we give the permission to the people around us to take care of themselves as well.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
So that was another really wonderful, experience of going through the program. So, bottom line, I learned so much more than I had expected. And the benefits just keep multiplying all the time.
Mm-hmm. I love it. And then you went on into our coach class, became a certified fibromyalgia coach yourself. Gisèle
Yes.
is one of the people you can schedule a consultation with. And how was that? I mean, I know that you took the class so that you could, help other people, and that's
Yeah.
always wonderful. But I'm curious if your own learning, your own health, how that next year then impacted your health, even though we were focusing on other people.
Well, for me, I should say, I continued, of course, applying, what I had learned. So it just kept getting better.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like putting money in the bank. You start reaping some dividends, I guess, or interest. And it's like compounding interest. So, the more you put in, the more it grows and the faster it grows. And that's really what I experienced, is that I just kept getting better and better. I felt better and better. And so I was so excited about being able to share this with others so that they could start experiencing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And again, as a nurse, you go into a profession like this, at least in my day, it wasn't a job. It was like a vocation.
A calling.
A calling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you have a heart to serve and you really want other people to regain their health again. So this was a wonderful way for me to do that, to respond to that calling that I've had always, but in a different way, and to give to my community. I have a new community now.
Mm-hmm. And to be able to give of yourself without depleting yourself, right? Like being able to serve, but not at the cost of your own health.
No,
be able to
not at
take care
all.
of yourself and other people.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you have any client stories you might want to share? Obviously, protecting client privacy, but
Yes.
any particular clients that stand out that you've worked with and stories you'd like to share?
So the last couple of years, I could think of two particular clients. I love all of my clients, really. And each story is so unique. There's a lot of things that look the same because we all share, a fibromyalgia diagnosis, but each person's situation is different.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, the story of the client who came to me with a long history of not feeling well. She was very active before coming down with fibromyalgia, and she knew about health and how to take care of herself. But fibromyalgia was something that she didn't know what to do with.
Mm-hmm.
And she had a lot of health challenges over the years. And when she arrived to me, there was this desire to finally learn how to manage her condition. So, in working together and in giving her the support and giving her the tools, what ended up happening was she became so empowered in taking care of herself and of her health that she decided to look into the possibility of breast implant toxicity.
Mm-hmm.
And this was an area that she had thought of before, but I think didn't really feel like she had the capacity to really focus on it. It was like opening sort of an area that she didn't feel ready for.
Right. Because I mean, the fatigue, the brain fog, the pain, like when you're barely getting through the day, you're not
Exactly.
really ready to open a new can of worms. You got enough
No.
worms already.
That's right. Exactly. So, in working together, she really blossomed and was using the tools, was sharing, and she could see that she was improving. But there was this other area that she finally felt strong enough and ready to explore. And she did. And then things just started happening really fast. And she ended up having an explant surgery. And, she's going through a process now of still, it's her journey. It's her
Right.
journey towards health, right?
Right.
But she's able to apply what she learned through our coaching time together. She's continuing to apply those tools.
That's
And
fantastic.
she's only getting better.
Yes, yes. And for you listening, we will have her eventually here on the podcast. She is still in the process of healing a bit, but when she's ready, we will share her story on the podcast. Because I know I've had several people who have wondered if breast implants might be part of what's making them sick.
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases, yes, it is, especially if those implants are leaking, if they've burst, like
Exactly.
there can be a lot of challenges there.
Absolutely.
So yes, for the person out there that I know you're thinking, ooh, I want to hear more about that, we will eventually get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the point is that, by giving our coaching support, we never totally know what the outcome will be. In this case, I never could have expected this, but it was just a wonderful thing that she felt able and ready to deal with that, with something that she hadn't before for a long time.
Right. And having your support in going through it too, I'm sure was a huge benefit.
Yeah. And another client actually was a long haul COVID client, a male client, and the last diagnosis he received was fibromyalgia. So some people now will develop fibromyalgia as a result of long haul COVID. And he was one to whom that happened. So we worked together and, he came to me. He had been going through a really hard time for 2 years. Prior to that, this was a young man in his, early 40s, had been healthy all his life, very active family, happy life, and just, really active in every way. And then COVID hit. And then it turned his life upside down, basically.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he wasn't able to work for those 2 years. He was really struggling with a lot of heavy symptoms that were keeping him down physically, no energy, pain, that kind of thing. And we started working together. After 5 months only, he was able to return to work full time.
That's awesome.
I was so happy for him, and he was just elated, of course. He really worked hard. Everything that we did, he applied, and he could see the benefits. And then we worked together for a few more months, but by the end of 9 months, he was completely symptom-free.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And you are a certified fibromyalgia coach. So this is just another good example of how the things that we learn, the self-management in particular that we learn, applies, even if fibromyalgia isn't the thing that you're maybe struggling with the most. I mean, he did have a fibro diagnosis as well, but I'm sure the long COVID was much more of an issue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I was able to look into, on top of fibromyalgia issues for him, I was able to help him with the other COVID related issues. And that I think is maybe because of the nursing background. There's just some extra tools that I have there. But it just worked very well with what I had learned in terms of managing our fibromyalgia symptoms. So everything.
COVID is another one that you can't push your way through.
No, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So that was a wonderful experience, and I mean, I could go on with each one of my clients, but those two really stand out for me.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. And I don't know if you feel this way, but I know several of our coaches, as I've talked with them, we all kind of have this feeling that, being a coach, I guess I should just speak for myself, being a coach is my secret weapon. Yeah. I know that there's no way my fibro would be in remission today if I wasn't a coach, because it keeps me focused on the things that I have to do. Every day I'm talking to somebody and I'm hearing myself, I'm coaching myself while I'm coaching them.
Yes.
And I do think
true.
that it really is my secret weapon. Mm-hmm. And I think that daily reminder, I mean, it is hard work. We're not going to lie to you here. It is hard work. And sometimes you don't want to do that work, but being a coach and having somebody that you're going to, talk to in the next day or so kind of helps keep you going,
Of course. And, that's the thing. So many of us don't share what we're going through because we know instinctively that no one will understand, in a way, because it's so unique what we experience and because we look healthy on the outside. And, it just becomes all of these barriers that prevent us from really getting support from our immediate environment, right? From our family and friends. So having a coach who, is a certified fibromyalgia coach who has been there is just invaluable. The quality of the connection is just so different from any other connection you could get from another coach. They get you. We understand our clients. We don't have to talk. Let's just say they don't have to describe in too many deep details because we know what they're talking about.
Right. If I have a client that says, "Oh, this was a hard week," like that's kind of all you have to say.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get you. Mm-hmm. I get you. It was a hard week. Okay, let's talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I love it.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up here, I would love to, kind of like we did last time, just have you speak to the person out there who's listening to all of this, just from your heart to theirs. What do you want people to know?
Well, one of the things I think would be really good for people to know is it is possible to get better. It is possible to manage your symptoms and to have a better quality of life. And the key is to find the right places where you can learn these tools and where you can learn how to take better care of yourself. And so I just want people to know, don't give up. Whatever you're doing, just don't give up on yourselves and don't give up hope, because even though we've said, it's hard work, I think what we mean is it's the commitment. We need to make the commitment. The work itself is not like, we're not asking people to climb Mount Kilimanjaro or,
No, we're usually asking people to rest more.
Exactly. Right. So it's not like it's hard work in that sense.
Strenuous work, perhaps not.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's not easy either.
No, it's change. We learn new ways of doing things. And so to do that, we have to be committed if we're going to see results. But when you feel ready, wow, your life can improve tremendously, by learning ways of just taking care of yourself that will support your health, basically, bottom line. And I haven't been able to find that kind of help anywhere else. I am perfectly honest. I looked everywhere. I couldn't find the help like this anywhere else. So.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad that you found me. And thank you so much for sharing your story and some of your clients. And it's been a pleasure to chat with you again.
Same here, Tami.
And for you listening, stay tuned. I've got a little bit more information for you. And of course, our listener shout out. And that wraps up my interview with Certified Fibromyalgia Coach Gisèle McDiarmid. As we discussed, you can hear more of Gisèle's story in episode 109. You'll find a link to that episode in today's show notes at fibromyalgiapodcast.com/112, or you can just search your favorite podcast app for episode 109. Just go back a few episodes from where we are today and look for multiple chemical sensitivity when typical treatments fail with Gisèle McDiarmid. If you're looking to hire a coach like Gisèle to help you on your fibro journey, visit findafibrocoach.com. Once you complete your application, you can select the type of coach you're looking for. We have the option for you to work with a student coach in training, a fully trained and certified fibromyalgia coach, or VIP coaching one-on-one with me. Every coach has their own separate business and sets their own rates. If you decide you'd like your coach's help in improving your fibromyalgia, you can discuss how they can help and what their rates are during your consultation. If you're interested in learning more about the International Fibromyalgia Coaching Institute, our Certified Fibromyalgia Advisor program, or about becoming a Certified Fibromyalgia Coach yourself, be sure to check out the special Be a Coach series that is running right now between our regular episodes. In this special series, we've got episodes like, what is a certified fibromyalgia coach? Who makes a good certified fibro coach? Why should you consider becoming a fibromyalgia coach? And how do you become a fibromyalgia coach? We also will be having our next live Stories of Hope and Healing event coming up in just a few days. This is an event I run twice a year where I interview recent graduates about what they've done to improve their fibromyalgia. Very much like my interview with Gisèle today, only a little bit shorter because we've got multiple people to interview. Our next graduation, we have got 7 or 8 graduates. It's quite a group. If you would like to hear the entire event live, you can RSVP to join us. We also will be playing excerpts from the event on the podcast in our next episode. So again, you can hear excerpts here on the podcast, but if you want to hear the event in its entirety, if you want to hear it live, we do have space and we'll have a link where you can RSVP in today's show notes. fibromyalgiapodcast.com/112. And now I've got this week's listener shout out for you. This listener was posting a comment on episode 106, which was my interview with Dr. Ginevra about her life implosion. In fact, episode 106 is called When Life Implodes with Dr. Ginevra Lipton. And this listener wrote in and said, "Thank you so much for this episode. I can relate very much to managing fibromyalgia, then having a life implosion just as I was making progress. This personal story helped me reimagine what is happening." Thank you so much for sending that in. And thank you so much to Dr. Ginevra for sharing her very personal and very vulnerable story. I think we all can relate to that. If you haven't checked out her interview with me yet, again, just go to today's show notes. We'll have a link for you. fibromyalgiapodcast.com/112. See you back here next time. And that wraps up another episode of the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm your coach, Tami Stacklehouse. For daily doses of hope, inspiration, and practical advice, come hang out with me on Facebook. Visit facebook.com/fibrocoach to find my personal coaching page and connect with me directly. To find the show notes, additional resources, or to schedule a consultation with me or one of my coaches, visit fibromyalgiapodcast.com.